Good evening. The Reagan Budget Cutting Act is poised to fall again.
In 1981, the new Reagan administration proposed its first budget. The plan included an economic program of tax and budget cuts that took a wide aim at the safety net of social programs vital to the poor, such as cash assistance, Medicaid, and food stamps. The swift passage of these dramatic cuts in Congress was accomplished by the administration's skillful use of the congressional budget process, accompanied by a sophisticated media campaign.
David Stockman was running OMB, and he was Reagan's principal spokesperson. He was media ready. He would go out there, and the media people were there, and they couldn't check what he was saying. And so the notion came, why not try to create an institution that does good, solid reporting on the facts in an understandable way, and to do it fast, so it's media ready.
The idea was born for a new organization that focused on the budget's impact on programs for the poor. Dick Boone provided a $175,000 grant from the Field Foundation to start it, and convinced a highly respected analyst, Bob Greenstein, to run it.
We started with just 4 staff, but within days of opening our doors, we were on the map.
There it was in print, the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. Catchy name and all. Here we are, 25 federal budgets later, and while the center has grown from a staff of 4 to 80 and expanded its reach, it continues to protect and improve programs for Americans in need.
The center begins with an incredible regard for facts and for honest analysis.
The problem with a lot of rapid response is it's rapid but not very good. And I think what's extraordinary about what the analysts over there do is it's rapid and reliable.
Income, poverty, and health insurance coverage from the current population survey. Here are some of the highlights. At 12.6% in 2005, the official poverty rate was not statistically different.
Have you adjusted Figure 1 with Aviva's new data?
I have. The numbers of uninsured children went up.
I'm going to have to give you an update because they update the state-by-state figure.
Like a lot of it's just going to be posted to the website.
Also, make sure that we have the graph on the front page.
Budget cuts aimed disproportionately at programs for the poor.
There are still lots of uninsured children who have incomes below 200% of poverty.
But the safety net for the poorest families with children has also weakened.
Speed, relevance, and accuracy is what sets the center apart. And then there's Bob.
Bob thinks in terms of paragraphs on a slow day, chapters most of the time, and entire books sometimes. And I almost always learn something whenever I talk to Bob.
Bob Greenstein, a good friend of mine, known him for years. I was sort of conservative, and Bob would keep pushing me. But I think their overall efforts over the last 25 years have been remarkable. I mean, they've had a great impact.
The center has had such an impact because its work on social policy is grounded in budget reality and a deep commitment to fiscal responsibility. More low-income Americans have access to food stamps thanks to the center. The center helped save the food stamp program from deep budget cuts in the 1980s, then helped revitalize it in recent years. And in 2002, Congress enacted more than 15 provisions designed by the center to help make food stamps more accessible to low-wage working Americans.
I can remember very well in 1996 when there was a proposal to block grant food stamp program, and they came up with information that demonstrated how counterproductive that would be.
Millions of low-wage working Americans would be living in poverty if not for the center's work on the Earned Income Tax Credit. The center has been instrumental in helping design and promote every expansion of the credit over the past 25 years. Today, the credit lifts more children out of poverty than any other government program. The center also leads an outreach program to make sure those eligible are aware of the credit and that they receive it.
In one of our first budget meetings with President Clinton, I was making the case that we had to propose the full earned income tax credit increase in order to live up to President Clinton's promise. When somebody questioned at the table, who would know if we simply saved a few $1 billion? I replied that Bob Greenstein would know the difference. At that point, a Treasury official said, well, last time I checked, Senator Greenstein doesn't have a vote. And I said, well, that may be true, but he is the person that the entire national media is going to check with. President Clinton kind of folded his arms and said, Gene's right. Bob is the person everyone's going to check with. In the end, that increase lived on, and they never cut a penny.
When infant formula costs grew so large that they began to gobble up the budget for the WIC program, the center designed legislation requiring all state WIC programs to use competitive bidding when purchasing formula. This change produced massive savings in infant formula costs of $1.5 billion a year, resulting in 2 million more women and children participating in WIC every month. The center played a vital role in preventing permanent repeal of the estate tax from passing in 2006, which would have swelled future deficits.
The Congress is almost held hostage sometimes by the vested interest lobbyists that are paid to protect the interests of companies and wealthy people, and poor folks just don't have that. The center has proven itself to care and to be effective. This become a part of us in the Ways and Means Committee.
And the center illuminated the Social Security debate, issuing many of the key analyses that revealed weaknesses in proposals to replace part of Social Security with private accounts.
Sometimes they're a little bit more creative and prolific than I would like, but certainly on the issues that I deal with in Social Security, you would be hard-pressed to find any think tank that has had a singularly greater influence on how people think about the issue than the people who've written for the center.
The center works on poverty, budget, and tax issues, not only at the federal level, but also in the states.
Having an organization that is so credible, that is able to translate, for example, what the federal budget means for real people around the country has just been really invaluable.
The center, led by Deputy Director Iris Love, and its foundation partners have created the State Fiscal Analysis Initiative, a growing network of 28 budget and tax watchdog organizations.
When there was an issue of tax policy in the state, who did you see? Who went to the Finance Committee? It was businesses and representatives of high-income people. Nobody represented low-income people. The State Fiscal Analysis Initiative organizations have changed the terms of the debate. They have given low-income people a voice and a seat at the table.
Through the state network, the center provides technical assistance to state organizations on a range of issues, including ways to close state budget shortfalls and make taxes fairer. This network has been the driving force behind a state earned income tax credit now enacted in 21 states. And the center's work has gone global. It has created the International Budget Project to help advocate for greater openness on budget issues and greater attention to the poor in developing nations.
This is taking the work of the center to the rest of the world, and particularly the poorer countries in the world who really need it.
For an institution like the Rockefeller Foundation, which has a mission of reducing global poverty and vulnerability, the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities is a critical partner to us.
Using facts over rhetoric, last year alone, the center released nearly 230 analyses.
The Center on Budget and Policy Priorities is the single most important source of objective information on the budget issues that come before the Budget Committee.
The Center on Budget and Policy Priorities is the holy grail.
The center does have a track record for nonpartisanship
and for integrity of his testimony.
They are viewed on both sides of the aisle, Republicans and Democrats, as one of the most reputable, credible, reliable sources of good information you can get as a legislator.
The Center believes in fairness and making sure all Americans are represented in complex budget discussions.
The Center has really helped to bring attention to the interests of a constituency that would be largely forgotten.
We faced an enormous challenge when welfare reform passed with a huge cut in services to legal immigrants that had nothing to do with welfare. And we were partners every step of the way with the Center on Budget to restore those benefits.
And the Center has been so effective because of its underlying commitment to fiscal responsibility.
Fiscal responsibility is one of the factors that has made the Center credible.
I'll bet you a nickel, when the time comes that there's a big showdown and we have some big budget agreement, which eventually I think will happen, Bob, he'll be right in the middle of it, and he'll be a voice for reason and for responsibility.
On its silver anniversary, the Center has been called the gold standard for its honesty and integrity in policy debates.
The Center is about integrity, clarity, commitment to social justice, helping poor people, honesty, decency, and doing it brilliantly.
As we celebrate the contributions the Center has made over the past 25 years, the Center is looking ahead now to the next 25 years.
With an aging population, rising health care costs, and tax cuts, the nation faces the toughest budget challenges in its history. And there's risk that powerful interests will push through budget decisions that protect themselves but end up hitting the weakest Americans hard, further increasing poverty and inequality. The Center's main mission has got to be to help the nation chart a different course, where we restore fiscal responsibility, reduce poverty, and expand opportunity all at the same time. That's what I look for the Center's next 25 years.